Welcome to the realm of Millenia. Be ye man, woman, child, spirit, creature, or demand. Be ye a native migrator, or maybe even innovator into the realm. Welcome, for I am your host, the Millenia Mailman, on this week 14 Devil's Advocate Hot Take for Humpday. For I'll always be advocating and world building for you long after you've already begun to acclimate and fit in. So go ahead, sit back and relax and enjoy the Hot Take Humpday for week 14 Devil's Advocate perspective here. It is a pajama bottom boys day. Use some rather colorful pajama bottoms, but it's what I got and felt like putting on for you guys. So enjoy the hot take perspective and disregard the color tones. But yes, week 14. This one's about DNA and how religious text and scientific discovery really connects the fact that actually complement each other to this comprehensive understanding that you definitely know yourself better than anyone else ever could, DNA included. So it is best that you are teaching your own DNA that 50% of the time instead of leaving it to the public school systems and such and so forth, so that are going to give you less than 35% of the time to instill your own values and your own teachings to your children. Is actually supported by both many religious text and belief standards and scientific discovery and fact. It's actually supported. You probably know yourself better than anyone else ever could, DNA included, so you should teach and raise your own children 50% of the time, or at bare minimum more so than any other person out there. I got so many talking points and my handwriting is so utterly small on this, I'm actually just gonna sit down. It's probably gonna dip into multiple videos because of that, but this was what we got here to talk about. So, yes, Devil's Advocate. You know yourself better than anyone ever could, DNA included, so it's best that you're teaching your own DNA more than the 35% of the time that public schools and private schools and the American schooling system will tend to leave you with. Because every second of the day, there's a saved file of you being imprinted within every single cell within you, and it's being transferred over to any offspring of yours at the time of conception. First plot point is that targeted phrase of people know of it takes a village to raise a child. Socially. It takes a village to raise a child socially. Because it takes the genetic parents to raise their child and children individually. If you are of the belief that we need to save the next generation from becoming terrible people because the people nowadays are terrible, in order to raise the masses of the next generation, you have to save them individually, not just by these generic brushes when everyone nowadays hates the whole idea of generalizing a mass of people. That's the problem with the school system, especially if you're against generalizations. Schools are the institutions that promote the most generalizations around, because one person is teaching 30 to 35 people at a time. It used to be back in the day 14 to 20. One teacher was teaching 14 to 20. Now we're having a single person deal with, put up with, and try to instill beliefs in masses of groups 2 times what they used to be at a salary that pays for less. I'm not paid enough for this. Right? So most religions call you to be or to do better for yourself, for those around you, or for the will of the God that tells you what to do, or the will of the God or gods that reach such that what you do and what you believe reaches newer followers more distant, right? Be better or do better for yourself or for those around you, or for the will of the God trying to reach new believers. And that's to say that we first know ourselves from an introspection, honest point of view. Be darned or not, to be able to recognize your own pitfall so that your Lord or fellow brethren can be able to help a brother out of your pitfalls, right? That plot point is really targeted to the aspect and understanding that, hey, we have to be able to honestly self-reflect. Because remember, every second of every day, your information is being uploaded, downloaded, and saved in every cell of you. So when you're being of the prolific activities and indulgences and producing offspring, your kids are bound to that save file of all your goods or all your bads, or 50% of your goods and 50% of your bads, or all your bads and all the bads of the partner you reproduced with, or all your goods and all the bads of your partner you produced with. Whatever that combination, the child's have your DNA and are thus susceptible to making those choices, right? So you have to be introspective enough to be like, hey, when I had this child, what was my mindset? What was my actions? What was my style like? So I can teach them the things they need to do to not be that terrible person I was. You have to be reflective and introspective enough in order to be honest with yourself and with the people who are going to have influence over your child, so that your child has the proper guidance to become a better person than you are now, or the better version of you as you are now, with less hiccups down the line. I'm a total drug addict, dude. I got anger problems and anger managements, and I've had them for years. Even before I had this kid, I had anger issues that I didn't understand, I had unresolved. Okay, good to know. I'm going to teach them all the things that worked for you from the start and go from there. Like, okay, cool. Versus, I was a perfect person when I had this child, and I'm a even better version of a perfect person now, so this kid is a bad ash kid, and I don't understand what the problem is. Well, you're not being really self-reflective, because even if you are a perfect or more perfect person than you were before, you're not being honest about who you were when this child was made, so we can make this child just as great as you are. It's like, you got to be honest with yourself. If you're lying to yourself about who you are now or who you were at the time of conception of the child, there's no hope for you or anyone else looking to you for answers to be able to fix it. They have to just go off the generic paintbrush strokes in order to figure out this and the problems and what the solutions need to be found in order to fix it. And that's only plot point 1 of the entire page I have here. So this is going to be a crazy long video, I guess. Right? Next point is science supports this in its own way with analogies to the save file of video games, right? And that the good and bad are passed on to your children with the passing on of the remote. Where we can make the video game analogy of pick a game, any game, where you reach checkpoints and save, right? So you're playing this video game, you get 20 checkpoints into the video game. You did the tutorial, you did it from the start, you're doing the game, awesome. You have a child, right? Now, effectively, when you're having a child, you're duplicating the account, right? You're duplicating the count. So where this child is starting off is from your checkpoint. They aren't starting from the beginning of the game. Their baseline starting point is the checkpoint you're at. So if you're going through life, you saved this file and you had reproduced a child at this particular checkpoint, in order to be properly self-reflective and understanding, you have to take it from the case of, what do I need to do to help them understand how to get ahead and be a better person, from the mindset that this is where they are, this is where I left them, and I basically passed him the remote from here. I might have beat the whole entire game by the time they turn into a cognizant 15-year-old, early adolescent, and before they turned into a whole grown person, a grown woman, a grown man themselves. But I might have beat the game years ago, but they're so confused because they started from a different point than me. I had them starting midway through the game when I wasted all the ammunitions to be found. Their saved file had no bombs, no grenades, no guns, no nothing. And they're suffering and don't know they're ruining the KD ratio that I had to fix, and I'm trying to explain and express a million things to them, and they're just not getting it. Maybe it's because they didn't go through the tutorial. You're warning them, hey, don't let the wolves tear you apart limb from limb. Make sure you use your knife. What button is the knife? You gotta dribble the ball and shoot it from the 3-point line. I don't know what button to press to shoot. Jump, jump, jump and shoot, jump and shoot, jump and shoot. 3, 2, 1, shoot. What are you talking about? What buttons are these? What is this called, a remote? What is this? I'm used to the Wii Switch. I'm used to holding the Joy-Con and it motion censoring me because that wasn't around then, but it's around now. I don't know what you're talking about, right? The whole save file access is, to put it in another way, is the difference between generations trying to teach and learn and re-educate other generations of people. And it's like there is a whole generational gap here, and it's not being fixed because very few people are being self-reflective enough to properly teach and educate the next generation that is forced to go off of themselves. So when we talk about generational curses and whatnot and so on and so forth, that is the whole gap in information being passed on, where a lot of people who are under the horrible effects of generational curses or just past them and yet somehow being trapped in the cycle of reoccurring generational curses and pitfalls, is that misinformation or discommunication of where you were at the time of this child needing to go through things and where you're leaving them off. Like, yeah, you beat the game, but you're not in multiplayer. Your style of going through the problems and fixing isn't multiplayer. So your partner who's working back from the mini boss is trying to beat this mini boss alone without any of the combat experience that you had going into that boss level. They just have the empty pack of goods and none of the knowledge, because it would be great if it was multiplayer and you actually helped and assisted them or talked them through in a very perfectly articulated manner, but you're not perfect at articulating and you're not actually here with me. You're just over my shoulder telling me, do this, do this, do this. This is what I needed to do. This is what you need to do, but I don't know how to do those things. I actually didn't play the tutorial. You played the tutorial and gave me the remote afterward. So I have none of the experience. Please help me. But that is unfortunately not the actual truth that we got to deal with, right? So science really supports that with the analogy where, in accordance to even science, we have like the story of mainline and nothing else, where the child or the descendants are trying to finish the game of people's saved files, and it's not all that awesome. Where even when you talk about nepotisms and stuff like that, certain concepts of nepotism could be understood as the parents beat the main line of the game. They beat the main line of the game, which is like 40% of the game itself, and they left their child the fun, awesome stuffs, the 60% rest of the game. Yeah, you have all these side quests, you have the Easter eggs, and you have the non-pivotal mini bosses that you can handle and take at your own time. You can collect this, you can collect that, and it's still fun and it's still awesome, and you can go back and re-experience the main game, the main line quest all over again at your own pace. That is what like real nepotism is like. You got this big old game, the hard stuff has already been handled and dealt with for you. Go with it at your own pace and everything. You'll be fine. Collect all the stuff you want. Take it easy. And people who feel left behind or left out or left alone and discouraged are people who are dead set and forced to follow this main storyline somewhere from the middle, not even the beginning, and oh my god, I don't know anything, I'm trapped, I'm stuck. Is that an entire mountain about to fall on me? What the heck is happening? Right? So, yeah. Where that's applicable to gun games and all sorts of, especially open world concept games, where, if we're being honest, gamers in the chat, like when we're talking about games and saved files, you know good and full well you would never trust like even your sibling to play on your account on your game, let alone half of you would ever even consider giving your account, the remote control to your account, to your child, and being entirely okay with that. Like a true diehard gamer who wants the best in your life, the best of your life and for your life, and the play style that you're playing, you would never pass the remote to someone and trust it and be okay with what they do to the account. Why are you just passing off the buck and handing it to your children to figure out all on their own? Why are you doing that? It doesn't make sense, but that's what's actually happening now. People are submitting their families and their own styles of gaming tactics to public schooling systems, or just trying to get away and hide from the duties and responsibilities of parenthood and being a proper parent to your children by pawning it off to someone else. Like, yep, I saved my data on account number 1 for you. I recommend you make a new account, or honestly, I got several achievements you could probably piggyback off that main account, but no, I'm not going to tell you any more information. That's all you really need, I guess. You'll be fine. I'll come back in 2 years, see how you're doing. Oh, dude, this is trash. Right? But that's what you're leaving with. I didn't understand. I ruined it. I reset the game, and Why would you reset the game? There were so many benefits I got for you. Some of those were even paid for skins, dude. You don't understand. It's whatever. It's whatever. And that's where the mental disconnect is coming from, generation to generation, where you wouldn't trust your sibling, let alone a younger sibling or your child, to finish and beat the game that you had without being like, oh gosh, why did I ever imagine? It's like, I knew they would ruin it. That's why I didn't even want you to play. So why would you, so why it's so normalized, rather, why is it so normalized that that's exactly what's happening nowadays between parents to children? Why is it so normalized of a thing that parents are less involved? It's a weird thing. It really is. Because in this play style of life as a video game with saved files, we're just leaving the next generation with zero experience and telling them to do this, telling them to do that, without any of the actual lead you by the hand. Life isn't going to lead anyone by the hand. Life leads people by the nose and enjoys the show of rage bait that it induced and instilled in people. Life leads people by the nose. So why in the world parents are trying to get their children to be okay with being led by the nose instead of led by the hand by them is utterly weird and bizarre. I know there are plenty of people and parents who do that knowingly and intentionally. It's like, I didn't have hand training. No one led me by the hand and assisted me every step of the way through. It is good or best for you to live that same lifestyle because it made me a great person. But did it? Did it really? Because it just seems like you hate me, dude. So there is that there. And the further we basically go on with it, that's just, the further we go on with that understanding, newer generations are just opting to do with their kids, do out with their kids by cutting education systems, the cut such that they can't possibly have every individual in mind, where newer and newer generations are leaving their children up for the ideological integration and off-putting of generalized conceptions to kids by the masses and over capacity occupancy rooms led by teachers that don't actually know them individually. So, and because work is becoming more and more prevalent as the days and years go by, so it's becoming hard. Newer and newer generations are opting for schools to take over and teach everyone socially without that individual level mentorship that parents should be doing for their own children, because you know you better than anyone else ever could. So the new generations are opting for the social experiment of what we all would like or turn into when people start from different saved files. People are starting from these different save file points and getting the generic tutorials from schools and no minimal education and training from their parents who actually played the game with the same controller settings, none modified or God forbid, modified control settings. Your parents modified their controls to fit them, and they handed you the controls, modified controls, and sent them to school to learn the neutral setting controls, and they still have your modified controller setting. It's like, come on, dude. It's really frustrating. And any gamer hearing me out here would best understand it. It's a really frustrating thing, to the point where newer and newer generations are just opting for the social experiment aspect of understanding and learning, because that is basically what you forced upon them, where there was no hope they could finish and beat the game. So every newer generation is opting to reboot the entire game, because they can't because they can't manage to play on from where you and your saved data left them to play on from. Because with every generation going through public school and having less and less parental involvement because of hustle here, hustle there, work priorities here, work priorities there, no family, familial ties and prioritization here. Because of these different things culminating, the newer generations are all opting for solitude and just resetting the board entirely, which draws them to lean apart these different specific political ways, has them opting for certain political agendas and so on and so forth. Because when you start from the beginning of the game and you get roped into being convinced by the initial game setting tutorials that lead you to develop how the game was made for you to play it, of course you're going to be led by the nose or drawn into tandem with the masses who started the game that particular way, instead of being able to even take advantage of where you were and how good you had it from the save file, but couldn't understand how good you had it because you couldn't understand anything from that point. The newer generations are opting for that restart social mentality, social experiment of restart everything and we'll figure it out from there on. And it's quite unfortunate because it really perpetuates the generational cursed generational curses cycle that no one can seem to understand how to correct or get out of and fix, because all of you guys are sucky at self-reflecting and being honest with yourself. You're sucky at the follow-through of fixing the problem. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't fix it in your life, but you couldn't even be honest so we could help the next generation fix it in theirs. You terrible, terrible, dishonest individual. You know yourself better than anyone else ever could, DNA included, and both religions and scientific discoveries and facts prove that. Everyone is opting for that social experiment without individual education, that social education without individual education, wondering how their kids ended up so different than intended or just straight up different than them. And it's all has to do with those saved files. Everything saved is everything prior to that conception, where if you have kids prior to your life's crisis, you need to have the memory and the self-reflective, honest ability to teach them through it. the crisis you surpassed but didn't pass on to them. Where if you get to the point where you're having kids prior to certain trials and tribulations going on through your life, to include salvation, darnation, or resolving of those problems, you're forced to reflect competently on the realistic things that you would have needed to help you get past those points and times in your life that got you over it. Otherwise, your kids are going to come out conservative and straight, rejecting all girl advances, while you're very much some raging liberal on your second or third lesbian marriage after conquering your past and been jailed several times in regards to some sex offender, misogynistic abuser that gave you Stockholm syndrome in your past. Your child's going to end up going down those same pitfalls and rabbit holes that you've conquered and got over and allowed to yourself to convert. They're going to become conservative and all those opposite things to you because you couldn't be honest with yourself with the things you actually needed, not just the things you wanted, but the things you needed in order to bring you that clarity, right? Yeah. They're gonna go down those ways and have some autism traumas and attachment issues because your kid still has all the problems you fixed because before you fixed them, you had the child. Right? Yet you, wondering why they turned out so differently than you, why it turns out that feels like they turned against you despite everything you thought you properly taught them. You taught them from a place of dishonesty and no self-reflection. And one thing I remember growing up was everyone in every grade and every class at the particular point in the year would be told to write yourself a letter for 5 years from now, you of the future, and for 10 years from now, and then open the letter and talk to yourself. Back in school, that was something everyone in all the grades did every single year. To you 5 years from now, and you 10 years from now, what do you have to say to them? What are your hopes, expectations, and also write a letter to yourself for 5 years ago and write a letter to yourself 10 years ago and read the letter. So first year as a university freshman, I wrote that letter, told myself all about myself, and then 5 years later, I was told to write a letter to myself 5 years ago and then open the letter from 5 years ago and see what's going on, right? And it's like, oh, darn, I forgot about that. Well, that's why there's a disconnect between generations, because a simple 5 years ago, I forgot this and that, and I was teaching. I, from a hindsight perspective, was trying to teach myself, who didn't know any of it, trying to send a letter back to the past and teach them without properly self-reflecting and being able to understand. Vice, had I wrote the letter to myself 5 years ago and then wrote my letter, I would write it entirely differently. And it might be an insane thing to be honest about, but it's the truth. So what I did was every time they would have me open up my old letter, I would write a second letter to myself in the past in order to be self-reflective. It's like, I'm gonna write another letter. oh, we're not gonna let you do that again. Like, well, I'm writing it for me because I messed up. I'm going to send down my past self on a very dark path. And I liked my innocence 5 years ago. I really did. I really do. If I was as innocent as I was 5 years ago, I would tell myself a whole different number of things in order to allow myself to be just as innocent, but just as capable. I would tell myself a certain different number of things because I forgot how innocent I was. I didn't even think I was that innocent that many years, just that short while ago, but lo and behold, I really was. And I want to try to preserve some of that as much as possible. So can I, you know what, you're going to tell me no again, so I'm just going to write it anyway. I'm going to write a letter to myself despite, even though I'm not allowed to submit it, I'm still going to write it and I'm going to save it and remember myself, hey, I need to, right? And they did the same thing for the 10 years later, where here you are, 10 years of university education. Oh, write a letter to yourself 10 years ago and a letter to yourself 5 years ago, and then open the letter, read them, and then write a letter again, and write the letter again to yourself, and hear all your letters back, and see how differently you see yourself from all these different takes and perspectives. Do you like yourself or do you not? If you like yourself, that means you, and what you said and all the things you did, and enjoy it. If you like yourself, that means you were on path and you never lost sight of your goal and what you needed to do. You were never unrealistic and true. You are consistently true to yourself, right? Advice, if you don't like yourself, you hate yourself, you disagree with yourself, that means your goals may or may not have been unrealistic. You didn't stay the same, you very much changed, and so on and so forth. And that little mandatory social experiment that everyone had to take part in was really telling, especially for me. It's like, in every last one of those, I was like almost entirely a different person. I'm too flip-floppy. Right? But that's the truth. That is the unfortunate truth that no one wants to admit. You are very different, and it's not a bad thing, especially if you are a better person than you were before. Right? It's not a bad thing to change, but especially not as an individual, but when it comes to maybe teaching youth or teaching your child or even newer generations, it's very much important to be able to be self-reflective in a manner that allows you to be articulate and expressive and understood consistently, properly across the board, right? So, yeah, it's just a matter of open honesty. There are a few more talking points I probably can fit in a different video, but I'll finish this one before moving on. Where with the saved file video game analogy, everything of you prior to that point of conception in of a child is going to be reflected in the child, right? Where you're forced to reflect competently on the realistic things that got you to where you are from what you experienced and gone through in the past and how you got over it, such that you need to properly articulate and demonstrate and be that additional multiplayer assist that helps your child get through that particular point. My phone is dying, I gotta talk faster, right? That is how children are coming to be so much different than their parental counterparts. And the certain things of the older generation are not being educated to their past or to younger generations moving forward. But hey, that's just me, your Millennium Mailman. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, like the video, put down in the comment section down below any questions, comment, concerns, and of course share the video for more exposure, or subscribe if you feel like it. Just unsubscribe or dislike the video if you don't, but by all means, every day, all day. Peace.